The Russian military is reportedly using torture pits.
Torture pits?
Yes, torture pits.
Are men tortured in torture pits?
A bit. According to a new report by journalists at iStories and researchers at the Conflict Intelligence Team, these pits are very large holes in the ground, giant ditches basically, where misbehaving, incompetent soldiers are dumped in a ditch for days at a time and left to wallow in the dirt, braving the elements, as punishment for complaining, boozing, doing drugs, or failing to obey orders.
Where are these torture pits?
Journalists think they found two sites, one outside Volgograd and the other outside Orenburg.
They think? Why do they think these pits are there?
iStories collected testimony from former soldiers at two training grounds in these areas and identified satellite images that appear to show the pits those soldiers described.
Satellite images of holes in the ground.
Satellite images taken in April 2023 and August 2023 show the appearance of two large pits outside the training camp in the Volgograd region and a new footpath leading to the pits. A Russian veteran who now advises the conflict intelligence team says the pits are too close to the camp to be garbage dumps. If these pits were for trash, it would violate the military's most basic sanitation protocols.
It's a training grounds. Could the pits be for training purposes?
There's no evidence that these holes were involved in training exercises. There are no steps into the ditches. There are no camouflage canopies over them. They're too small for testing grenades, and they're not isolated enough for testing firearms.
What about the other site outside Orenburg?
The satellite images here are inconclusive, though researchers did find another pair of ditches that could be the rumored torture pits.
Rumored.
iStories spoke to a soldier who trained at this facility this summer. The journalist gave him the pseudonym Viktor. Viktor described a chaotic breakdown of discipline at the base. According to Viktor, roughly 80% of the soldiers undergoing training were prisoner recruits who were often drunk or high. In his comments to journalists, Viktor said repeatedly that these soldiers were there for the money.
Why is that important?
Conflict intelligence team analysts argue that Russia has exhausted its supply of patriots who enlisted for the country, and the men now passing through these training camps are desperate for cash. This has attracted a certain element of new recruits, such as prisoners who often have a problem with authority. To solve this disciplinary challenge, the military has resorted to more violent training measures.
How bad could a pit be?
Deadly, actually. This isn't the first time the Russian military has punished bad soldiers by throwing them in a big hole. In September 1998, at the same training grounds outside Volgograd, a 19-year-old soldier named Andrei Rybakov was killed while being disciplined and held in a pit with another soldier.
Disciplined for what?
A dirty collar and unkempt hair.
How did he die?
According to a local soldiers' mothers' rights group, the lieutenant colonel in charge of the base worried that visiting safety inspectors might disapprove of the makeshift stockade in which Rybakov was being held. So he ordered it covered with soil over a kind of tarp, apparently. The covering collapsed, however, killing Rybakov and seriously injuring the man with him, who was later discharged from the military on psychiatric grounds.
So these pits are an unofficial form of punishment.
But that hasn't kept these two training grounds out of the headlines. This summer, former president and current Security Council Deputy Chairman Dmitry Medvedev visited both sites, landing by helicopter and strutting about in camouflage. Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu visited the training grounds outside Orenburg a month later.
So Medvedev saw the pits.
The pits didn't make it into Medvedev's tour. Viktor, the former soldier who spoke to iStories, was there when Medvedev visited. He says the former president's handlers were careful to keep him away from the barracks and away from the soldiers who were apparently drunk at the time of his visit. Viktor also claims the military brought in 3 new tanks just for Medvedev's visit and had the crews drive them in circles, so the 3 tanks looked like 10.